It's happening. 3 years after the Dieselgate scandal broke, we are finally starting to see automakers distance themselves from diesel engines. Aside from the more obvious, more and more automakers are now being found as having cheated with their emissions tests for those diesel vehicles. Automakers are finding that they simply can't produce diesel engines for passenger cars that meet the ever-increasing emissions regulations around the world. And while the US is, sadly, currently going backwards on emissions regulations, it just doesn't make sense for automakers to spend billions on new diesel engines that they can't sell around the world, which means that plug-in cars are now becoming the logical transition for many automakers. Plug-in cars, be they all-electric or plug-in hybrid, offer low-end torque and far lower emissions than diesel vehicles. Thanks to incentive programs and increased battery pack capabilities and falling costs, they're also becoming increasingly cost-effective for buyers. In the last month alone, we've seen BMW and Porsche distance themselves from diesel engines for their own passenger cars. For BMW, it's a matter of removing diesel-engined options from passenger cars in the US, replacing them instead with plug-in hybrid options. For Porsche, it's more of a global decision, with the company, despite its connection to the Dieselgate debacle, saying that diesel engines really aren't a very good fit for sports cars. Electric drivetrains, meanwhile, as we all know, are great for sports cars thanks to their instant torque and response. Finally, then, it looks like diesel engines are on their way out and getting replaced with plug-in hybrids and fully electric models, at least in markets with increasingly tough emissions regulations. And that's really good. But it's not that easy. Diesel may be dead for passenger cars, but that's not true for larger SUVs and pickup trucks. Until diesel engines are treated the same worldwide, it's really not going to be a massive impact to global emissions, because the markets with less stringent emission requirements are often the ones with the largest growth in auto sales. Anyway, back to the problem of pickups and larger vehicles. In many countries, including the US, emissions requirements for larger vehicles, such as full-size SUVs and pickup trucks, are less stringent than they are for smaller passenger cars. And as such, they traditionally have had larger engines, which tend to be less efficient, and you've guessed it, more polluting. And it's a loophole that many automakers are exploiting, especially as we see more and more automakers drop traditional passenger cars in preference for SUVs. Granted, some of the SUVs we're seeing come to market do still fall into the category of the smaller commercial or passenger vehicles, but some don't. Take, for example, your average full-size pickup truck with a double crew cab. Walk into any US car dealership and you won't see the fuel economy listed on the windscreen because it's not required under law. Yes, there are emission standards for these vehicles and fuel economy targets too, but they're less stringent for these vehicles than they would be for smaller passenger cars. And because dealerships and automakers can make significant profits on pickup trucks, and because self-employed people can, in some markets, write off full-size pickup trucks and SUVs against their taxes as work vehicles, we're seeing an increase in the number of full-size pickups and SUVs on the road. Combine these lower standards with cheaper fuel prices and the fact that diesel engines traditionally get more miles per gallon than petrol engines, and we've got a big problem. Is there a solution? Yes. The logical one, of course, would be to see more legislation of larger vehicles. Some countries are already doing it. The US, of course, isn't. And with no automaker yet really bringing a plug-in hybrid pickup truck to markets, we're left with a very large hole of more heavily polluting diesel vehicles that desperately need replacing. We know electric motors are great for low-end torque. We know that battery technology is improving to a point that cost is lower than ever before. And we also know that electric drivetrains are far less troublesome when it comes to maintenance. But diesel is still cheaper for automakers, and until they've got a reason to switch, they won't. They've been given a reason with passenger cars, and now I'd suggest they need a reason for larger vehicles too. And if you're in a country without those regulations, this only works by talking to your elected officials and telling them why the regulations need changing. So if you want to see more plug-in truck and SUV options, get out and get involved. That's it. As always, hit the notification bell to hear the moment a new show is uploaded. Subscribe to both of our channels, and if you fancy it, support us by using one of the 2 links below or by buying something from our new shop that you'll find just below me if you're watching online in a web browser. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep evolving.